Empezamos. Ser o estar. Estar is where you are. In a house or in a car. Or if you're happy or if you're sad. Estar can even tell you if you're mad. Pero ser is who you are. From the USA or from afar. I think some of you from Costa Rica out there. If you're skinny, fat, short, tall. Ser describes you best of all. So if you want to be a star, which word would you use? Ser o estar?
You're listening to The Night Before, a movie podcast. Each episode, we find a unique place in the city and share a drink and our thoughts about the movie we watched the night before. This is Lee, and I am joined, as always, by my husband, Jesse.
I think we should get going. I think talking about our pizza and all this stuff.
Now it's recording. Well, it's probably good that we didn't record the part about you complaining about other people's children.
Why? People will relate to that.
It's a problem at breweries in general. Children and dogs.
In this day and age, it's a problem with breweries in general.
What?
But not when what I'm trying to say
Let's
is
say it's not a problem with breweries. It's a problem with...
the generation.
I was going to say, because no, they're from our generation. They're like 10 years younger
They're
than
not
us.
from our generation.
They're 10 years younger than us.
People that have toddlers are not from our generation.
Okay. But you might be right. But I'm saying that the problem is not breweries. The problem are a segment of the folks who attend breweries.
10 years younger than us.
Yeah, with kids. But
15 years younger than us.
it's a hangout spot, I get it. But anyway, there's a lot of kids around
A lot
today.
of toddlers running around.
So we're
beating each other with
at Crooked Thumb Brewery in Safety Harbor.
But they're gone now. So
I'm going to write a strongly worded
toddlers.
email.
And we have 4 kids, so we like kids, but not at breweries.
But we don't dare bring them.
We don't bring our kids to breweries. I mean, on the occasional vacation, we'll bring them, but they have an activity at the table to do. And our kids are older.
You give them a screen to stare at.
Or Uno cards or a board game or something like that.
No, but the point is we don't let them run free and wreak havoc around the place.
Well, and disturb other people's experiences. I have to say, this is like the most adorable thing I'm staring at right now.
At least we're changing the subject. So
have
folks don't
to-
know, the first
you have to
5
look at
minutes of this
right now.
podcast
You have to look
was
at
a
this.
rant that didn't
Please
record.
turn around and look under the... Oh, it's done. Gone. Under the table. No, okay. So he was grabbing her leg. They're very sweet
A
together.
tender moment.
And their son
Mhm.
was grabbing their hands too. Was like wanting to be part of the affection. It was very sweet. Anyway, their son's like an adult, but...
So it's a Saturday afternoon. I'm eating
This is
food.
Saturday afternoon. We're eating pizza from Nona Slice House in Safety Harbor.
We did the old
But we're at Crooked Thumb Brewery.
trying to find a food truck that was at a brewery. So go to a brewery that had a food truck.
Couldn't do it. Couldn't find it.
But we said we would just BOP.
Bring our own pizza.
BOYP?
BYOP.
BYOP. Bring your own pizza.
Yeah.
That's all we did.
Bring your own pizza. So we did, and it was good. It was called the Honey Cup because
Yeah.
it had the little cupped pepperonis with fresh basil, ricotta, and
Hot honey.
or ricotta, however you want to say it, and
not
hot
one of those
honey
podcasts.
drizzle. Sorry, it's not a food podcast.
No, it's not a correct
with a hot honey drizzle.
pronunciation podcast.
Okay,
It's a BYOP podcast.
BYP.
Yeah. Bring your own podcast.
Okay. And then we're drinking.
We may be drinking vampires and centaurs.
Centaurs.
Some pronounce it centaurs, some centaurs.
I thought this was that kind of podcast. It's centaurs.
It's ARS, right?
Yeah, centaurs.
Okay.
I taught this.
Let's see where we're at.
What were you calling it? Centaurs?
No, a centaur.
Centaur?
TAR.
Like
Is that-
TAR? No, it's TAUR.
Oh, there's a U in there. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. I stand corrected. BYOP.
Anyway, we may be drinking that because when we ordered our first beer, we ordered a hazy something. Can't remember the name.
It was Hazy Adventures number 2.
Hazy Adventures number 2, and then we also
We got-
ordered the Vampires and Centaurs. And when she brought it to us, she goes, "This might be the Vampires and Centaurs." I don't know.
When I was
she
watching
mixed
her-
them up.
Pour from afar. She was struggling with the pour. But
The foam. The
yeah,
what do you call it? The
sure. It's not that kind of podcast. Point is, we're throwing a lot of critical
Can I eat
judgment.
that pepperoni?
Yeah, we're throwing a lot of critical judgment at Crooked Thumb today. But
no,
the
we
truth
love
is, we like
Crooked
Crooked Thumb. It's a cool outside area. But there was right before us showing up, there was a 40th birthday party.
Where
And
there
I
were
think
10
the 40
toddlers
referred
at.
to bring your 40 toddlers. It was like a challenge.
Yeah.
It was a 40 challenge.
And I'm like, I
And
love
they were
kids.
unruly.
They were unruly.
Yeah. From us.
I mean, like
from
they
our
were like
perspective.
0 to 4-year-olds. 0 to 4-year-olds.
Mhm. From us parents who've done this before, we were like, never in my day.
You don't just let them run free, hitting each other with balloons around a brewery. We just don't do that. I
All
don't
right,
know,
so-
but we're from a different generation, so
So we're getting ready to go see a movie,
we are.
which will probably be a future episode.
Mm.
Crimes of the Future, David Cronenberg.
I have to say, I'm not looking forward to it, but I'm doing it for you.
I think it's going to be,
We do things for each other.
Different.
We see movies for each other.
speaking of seeing movies for each other, let's talk about
That was
today's
a good
episode.
segue.
Yeah. So let's do 2. We saw one last night, The Worst Person in the World. Is that it?
The worst person in the world? The
I don't know.
worst?
All I know is that
oh
it
my God.
stars
We don't
Dakota
even
Johnson.
know that. It does not star Dakota Johnson, actually.
The Worst Person in the World. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I'm joking.
The worst
she looks,
person in the world.
She looks a lot like Dakota
looks
Johnson
similar,
at
too.
times.
She's a great actress. I really liked her acting in that.
So we'll
this
get to that.
movie.
Everybody's really good in that.
But we'll get to that. Yeah.
But,
But
a
we-
night or
are
two
we also-
prior, I
oh,
think
yeah.
we should do a quick
Yeah,
highlight.
yeah, yeah.
We saw the Mark Duplass
Language
starring
lessons.
film Language Lessons on HBO Max,
hmm
which we wanted to talk about as well.
We definitely want to talk about it. Even though it's not the night before, we're kind of pairing it together because,
It's like Natalie Morales and Mark Duplass.
yeah.
So those are our 2 movies. We're going to talk about each real quick. We haven't really talked to each other much about them. I know you
It's
liked
hard.
you like
It's
Language
hard
Lessons
not
a lot.
after language lessons. It was hard not to talk about it because I adore this movie. Like I literally didn't want it to end. I felt every kind of feel during the movie, kind of like laughter. I was so into the characters and so drawn into the movie that it was just such a great movie to me. I loved it so much.
Well, I liked it, but I'm a sucker for any Mark Duplass film.
You like Mark Duplass, and I only have experience with him in watching the
Creep
Creep
and Creep 2.
movies. So I
Which-
was really happy to see his face and like transform my image of him with this movie and
But
not
Creep
seeing
is a
him in
really
Creep.
great movie, right?
Yeah. No, I like Creep, but now I've only associated him with like creepy.
He's
weirdo.
also in a TV series called The League
I haven't
that a
seen
lot
that.
of folks like. It's a comedy about some friends who do a fantasy
Speaking of, we need
fantasy
to do our
football league.
Ozarks episode.
We may or may not. We'll just say, you know,
We'll talk about it later.
wasn't great.
We'll talk about it later.
Maybe we'll foresee. Only,
we
I mean,
will talk
we're
about
a
it
movie
later.
podcast, but our most downloaded episode of all time still is the TV series
and I
Midnight
thought it
Mass.
was. I loved Ozark.
So anyway, like
anyway,
our TV series podcast
we're
do better.
digressing.
No,
Live music is about to start, by the way.
I know we're gonna get some live music soon. Crooked Thumb can't do anything right on a Saturday afternoon, for us.
Oh. Don't tag them in this podcast.
What?
Don't tag them in this podcast.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say this is not that kind of podcast.
No.
No, but I think we should say a little bit because language lessons. It's one of those COVID era Zoom inspired movies.
Yeah.
Which
for sure.
You might want to instantly kind of roll your eyes at a bit, or not be excited to see at least because it's people talking in front of a camera,
Zoom
like
style.
it's on Zoom.
But 100% go see it right now. Like, it is so good. I love that movie so much.
But I think what works for this movie, you said you really adored it. I think this movie only, though maybe it was thought of or inspired by the limitations of COVID, but this movie only has its impact if it's in this format. This is an appropriate format for the story.
This movie could have been made outside of COVID and still been awesome,
but,
except the Zoom piece.
But it would
like
have
people
to be
weren't
via Zoom.
Current, yeah.
And that's also what makes Creep so good. And maybe Mark Duplass is just like a master at this. But Creep.
Mark Duplass makes this movie amazing.
But Creep is the same sort of, not Zoom, but it's the idea of it's both Creep 1 and 2, though that's more like thriller horror movies. It's all done on a camcorder video, like it's point of view, POV, right?
Yeah.
Handheld camera. Creep is about, right, a woman goes to
He must just really like that style.
Well, he excels at it. He does plenty of other stuff. But he's really good at talking face on to the camera.
What did she go to his house for? To be a writer for him or something?
It was
like
something
that.
about he's dying and she's there to chronicle his life.
Kind of
yeah.
autobiography.
And it turns out it's really something else. He's a creep.
Yeah, he's a creep.
So it's all told through the video lens. So he's really good at talking straight onto a camera and acting in front of a camera.
Yeah.
Which,
he's
by the
so
way,
good at it.
he's
so, for such not a, like, amazingly attractive guy, looking at Mark Duplass up close like that and his acting, he is so, like, attractive. His, like, personality.
He's like an everyman.
And, like, yeah, like, he's more attractive than, like, most actors, I think. Like, your Tom Cruise or your whatever, because he's so, like, real in front of the camera.
You know what it makes me want to see that we still haven't seen?
That's what I don't like about Tom Cruise. He's so not real in front of the camera.
Of course. Well, he's charismatic in front of the camera.
He's charismatic, but he's not real.
He's confident in front of the camera.
He's acting.
Mark Duplass is vulnerable.
I mean, they're all acting, but...
He's vulnerable.
Yeah.
It makes me want to return to that Netflix film starring Mark Duplass and Ray Romano, where Ray Romano is dying of cancer.
We watched that together?
No, we haven't seen it.
Oh.
It's called, like...
Yeah, I remember that.
It's not called...
I think I really wanted to see that, but I don't think we got around to it.
No, we've never got around to it. But it's one I really do want to see. It starts with a P. I can't fully remember what it's called. So that's not helpful for anybody.
No.
But,
well, people that know will know. Stole your pepperoni.
Paddleton. I didn't want to say... I was
Oh.
going to say Paddington, but I knew that wasn't
Oh, yeah.
it.
Paddleton.
But I do want to see that. But no, I think this movie works best because it's on that, like, point of view. So the premise of it, even though we're like 10 minutes into talking about it, is Mark Duplass's character gets
A gift from
his
husband.
husband of
100 languages.
100 free Spanish lessons, conversational Spanish,
On Zoom.
via Zoom, from a woman who lives in Costa Rica.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really just a chance for him to talk with her
have conversational,
Work on his Spanish.
work on his Spanish, have conversations, whatnot. And it's a surprise. The beginning kind of starts where it's like a surprise. She's on the Zoom. He kind of surprises him with it, and it shows like his real life kind of amongst the surprise of the
So of
first
course,
lesson.
over such a long, that's like 100 lessons,
Uh-huh.
and the conversational nature of it, they start to learn stuff about
More
each
about
other.
each
Mark
other.
Duplass and Natalie Morales' character.
And they become friends, you know, like friends, and it's very raw, and the emotions are raw, the things that happen in their lives are raw. There's a lot of funny bits. They're like, I love that the funniness and the emotions are seen through their little twitches in their face, because you're looking like when things are happening and they're telling each other these things that are going on in their life, you're looking at their face. And the acting of that is, it's different, like facial expressions and twitches in their face and
Well, it's neat.
whatnot, and that's kind of hard to do, like
Well,
really
it's neat
hard
too
to do.
because there's a lot of subtle. There's a lot of subtle background changes, right?
Yeah.
They use location well in the fact that you only get to see what's kind of in their webcam. They never cut to like establishing shots or is that they tell you kind of what lesson. It'll say like lesson 1 or lesson 2, and it's neat because they do it in Spanish and English.
Yeah,
And this movie is half in English, half in Spanish.
with subtitles. Yeah.
Yeah, with subtitles. So
Mhm.
half their conversations, Mark Duplass, either he knows. This is one thing we did talk about. Either he knows Spanish really
I think
well.
he's fluent in Spanish.
Yeah.
Because to be able to act like you don't, you know,
But
like
he acts well that he doesn't. That he knows enough to have a conversation.
he knows enough to have
but
a
makes
conversation,
mistakes.
but makes mistakes. And I think that has to be acting. It has to be acting. I think he's probably bilingual, like fluent in Spanish in real life. Unless he just learned it for the script.
But
I
just
don't
the way
know.
he spoke too.
If he learned it for the script, that's a lot of Spanish to learn for the script.
But
I
the way
mean,
he spoke, right? Because this is what I was talking about today at home. As someone who doesn't know Spanish, you listen. A lot of times you hear someone speak foreign language, right? On a foreign language film, like the other movie we watched, The Worst Person in the World. You don't really pick up much of the language. Like
Right.
you see,
It's
you read
so
the
fast
subtitles,
that
you start to hear the
just-
thing. But the way he spoke,
You could actually learn it as
you were kind of
went.
as you were matching the translation, the subtitle with the
'Cause
Spanish
he spoke it
was
more
saying.
slowly.
Yeah.
He messed up, and every time he did something
And he seemed to be using
incorrect,
a
they put
simpler
it in like
vocabulary.
quotes or
Mhm.
parentheses
Yeah.
or something.
Mhm.
If he
Use the wrong pronoun or
used the wrong thing, they put it
Or
in
the
quotes or
wrong word.
parentheses. Yeah.
no. But I thought it was nice and sweet.
And he searched for the word,
Yeah, he did a lot of the.
you
How
know,
you
but
say.
it didn't seem like acting either. It really didn't.
I know it's very natural.
It's very natural. So you don't know if you maybe
I almost
he's
wondered,
like,
did they have? Because the
like,
woman
was
who started
he
this.
taking language lessons
No,
during
but
COVID?
I'm saying, did
maybe.
they have a lot of just?
And he was inspired by.
Did they have just a lot of conversations or prior, or did they just film this? I mean, there's no reason. There are times when you have the picture-in-picture, right? The other, like the FaceTime, the other person in the small square.
Hmm.
But a lot of times it was just the person's face. So I wondered, how did they even film it? Were they talking to each other when it was filmed, or?
Right.
Not that it matters, but it was all very intriguing.
It was amazing movie. I loved it so
Wow.
much. I really did. Like, it was one of the best movies I've seen in a long time. For me. For me, with the just kind of like being drawn in, being so like emotionally involved in the characters, and you know, that's important for me in a movie or anything.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I was thinking today, waiting for our pizza,
Mm-hmm.
on my Letterboxd account,
Yeah.
as I watch movies, I rank my favorite top 12,
Right.
right?
Yes.
And at the end of the year, I lock them in.
Right. Are you promoting your Letterboxd account right
A
now?
little bit.
Okay.
Low key.
Just
Low
Just
key.
wondering.
But they got to find it if they want it. But no, the point is, I rank like movies I saw for the first time that year. They didn't have to come out that year, but like, out of new movies I saw or first time watches. So right now I have Language Lessons at number 7.
Wow. Of your top 12?
Yeah, out of all I've already watched,
Wow.
You and I, Not All Together. I've watched nearly 70 films, and it's number 7.
I have to say, yeah, it's one of the best movies I've seen. It needs to get more attention than it's getting, for sure.
Yeah,
100%.
it's on HBO Max.
It's great.
So
Watch it. Get a free trial if you don't have HBO Max
that's always
and
our
watch
thing,
it.
right?
That's
Get
what
a
we
free
do.
trial. Get your 7 days. Get out.
Yeah, get your 7 days, watch the movie, get out. Put it on your calendar.
You know, my number 1 is another one of our episodes.
I can't think right now. You're asking me questions.
Benedetta.
Oh, yeah.
Did we do an episode about that?
Yeah.
Good. I hope so.
Yeah, we definitely did.
Because that's my number 1 of the year that
Yeah,
I've seen
that
this
was
year
a good
so far.
movie. That was a really good movie.
That just shows you where Language Lessons is.
Yeah, I thought it was great because it was unconventional. It was great. Mark Duplass was great. Natalie Morales is great.
And she's the main creative force behind that movie, by the way.
Oh yeah, she was.
So we talk a
excellent
lot about
in it.
Mark,
but we don't talk as much about her. But she was.
She directed it.
Really?
Now, Mark and her wrote it together, but I could see that through maybe some of the conversation emerging. It feels like a Zoom project.
She was excellent in that movie.
But she was the other part. And that's the one thing I'll say, too, that I thought the movie did an interesting part in, but didn't, because we see the same thing in The Worst Person in the World. It's sort of a trend in cinema right now, like woke or aware cinema, right? Mark Duplass's character was careful. He played a homosexual male, but he was careful. He was always conscious of not being a like a mansplainer.
Right. Yeah.
Or being the white savior, or being.
Well, I think what I really liked about it was that it's that conundrum that someone like him who had money or was in a relationship where
he had money, he had privilege.
He had privilege, but he was caring and about everyone. And he cared about her and wanted to help her, but he is faulted right from the start because he has privilege and whatnot. So it's almost like, well, if I try to help you, it's because I have privilege and I think I can save the world and I'm mansplaining. But if I don't try to help you, I'm being greedy and not caring about the world.
Well, yes, I mean, I think the movie did a good job of exploring that struggle.
Right.
Right?
Yes, I agree.
That like white guilt struggle, because it's so easy just to point a finger.
Yeah.
And it seems like today a lot of just online commentary is just quick to judgment, right?
Yeah.
And even their relationship, she would jump to that. He would jump to certain assumptions. She would jump.
She's like, I don't need saved. I don't need,
And it's that struggle of convincing someone that you genuinely care about them.
And you have money to put towards, you could buy a $5,000, $10,000 sofa, or you could help someone you care about. You know what I mean? Like, that's really the decision when it comes to people that have a ton of money like that. And then, but they're faulted in the fact that if they reach out to care for someone, they are exploiting their privilege.
Yeah. So I thought it did. It did a good job just exploring that trust and insecurity.
Yeah, for sure.
People.
I loved it. Like
his insecurity, her trust issues, his willingness to like instantly trust and connect with a person, her hesitancy towards it.
Because of her background.
Him not understanding it. Her not understanding or trusting where he's coming from.
True.
the kind of like mixed messages you get from each other when
Yeah.
you're just struggling with it and that
Yeah,
raw
yeah, yeah.
emotion.
Yeah.
So I thought it was good. A movie that I didn't think did it quite as well was The Worst Person in the World.
Jeg tror en bok, jeg.
Hæ?
Ja. Kast den ene. Altså, kan jeg få 2 bokhyller?
Hvor mange klesskap skal du ha?
Hvor mye kan jeg få?
Nei, det er ikke sånn det funker. Nei, men akkurat det her, det er sånn gammelt, der står det med sånn bølger og sånn. Nei, ikke gjør det. Nei, ikke sånn.
But I think explored those same
Same
feelings.
things. Yeah. Yeah.
But from initially the perspective of one of the main character.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as the movie gets better as it goes. So that was the other movie we watched last night. Which,
Yeah, I don't
by the way, on
see
my
the
letterbox,
direct connection
made
of that,
it to
but
a number 10.
Okay. Really?
Number 10.
I don't see the direct connection of that. Like,
What, the trust and the insecurities and
no. I see it of the trust and insecurities, but not of the like financial privilege part. You're talking more about the trust and insecurities.
Well, no, just in general. It doesn't have to be necessarily financial. This one was the trust and the insecurities.
Oh, okay.
The Worst Person in the World lended a bit more on the emotional side. But the film developed in it with the main character, her, and the cartoon artist boyfriend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was the dynamic between them. That was interesting.
Yes.
We are.
Yeah.
Hey. We love Crooked Thumb too.
Our band plays here sometimes.
Oh, awesome. What's your band?
Cracker Billies.
Cracker
Cracker
Billies.
Billies,
All right, cool.
okay.
Came to see Gypsy win because
That's right. Gypsy One's playing. I know.
Awesome. Thank
Looking forward to
you. Thank you. Yeah,
What's your name?
we love Crooked.
My name's Steve Humes.
Steve, I'm Jesse. This is Lee.
Hi, nice to meet
My
you.
wife Lee's over there.
Awesome.
And Dave Morgan's over there from the Cracker Billies.
Oh,
And
awesome.
we just came out here to hang because we love Crooked Thumb.
Yes,
Same,
we do
that's why
too.
we're
We
here.
do too. We love it here. So we always kind of pop up at a different local place and do our podcast. So.
Beautiful. Hey, well, thanks. Hey, everybody out there.
Hey, yeah, no, here's Steve. All right.
Awesome.
Awesome, Same.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, little, Crooked Thumb that needs some love.
Oh, there we go.
But no, but I was saying the more there was just that dynamic I think present, and not even so much in there. Not even part of it was their relationship. Yes.
Yes.
Axel was his name, right? Axel.
Asker. Something.
Well, American.
They're like Norwegian, kind of like Swedish or something.
But some of it too was, well, I think their thing was a little more, which I think was thinking that resonated with me, which is my kind of bigger commentary on The Worst Person in the World, was just this attempt to like, here's how we can emotionally connect with all our audience members from ages 20 to 50, right? We'll put in these different character types, right?
Okay.
And so this one, Worst Person in the World, it was that generational gap and disconnect, right? Thinking about, they have a part in there about mansplaining and womansplaining. They make a joke about it.
Because it's true, womansplaining is a thing, but that's not a thing.
Right?
Like, I
well,
have to...
and some of the older characters got in this trap, kind of like Mark Duplass's character got in that trap, right? Of seeing the world, living in a different world.
Mm-hmm.
And he lived in a different world, Axel, and that I thought was poignant by the end, where he's like, the world I grew up in doesn't exist anymore. And that's also, what do we got?
Oh, thank you.
Awesome, Cracker Billies. We got a card for the Cracker Billies. The world he grew up in doesn't, and it's like dealing with that, and his perspectives and views on things are being challenged by a younger generation, right? He has this whole thing where he blows up on the radio interview about sexism and his view on things and art.
They are picking at his word choice and how he's explaining things in his comics, like what's going on.
But they're also
in his
20 years
comics.
younger than him.
Yes, yeah.
but there's even the reason why, and there's the relationship between him and her, that disconnect, right?
Yeah.
Where he's into one thing, she's into something else. He does all his work on paper, she does all her work on computer. She's on her phone, he's never on a phone, and he says things like, "Hey, yo," to get her attention. So not quite the same, but there was that same sort of still that struggle I felt.
Generational struggle.
Yeah, it was a little more
between them.
generational
Yeah,
and
yeah,
emotional disconnect versus more monetary and white and privilege. It was still that disconnect there, that distrust and insecurity about where different people come from.
Are in the world.
Yeah.
And their experience and whatnot.
I just felt the worst person in the world tried a little harder to, I don't know. It wasn't quite as genuine and feeling.
As, language lessons.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. What I liked, that part was a side thing to me.
I guess I'm saying I didn't really like it until the back half of the movie.
That part wasn't a major focus for me, actually. The major focus for me was her and her character and the things she was going through.
But she's the character you're supposed to identify. That's what I mean. Where
I did.
Where they said, "Oh, we're gonna make a movie that anybody between the ages of 20 and 50 can identify with."
And I don't think.
And you were marked for that. I was marked for Axel.
And
you were marked for her.
I agree. And I don't think I've ever seen a movie that I've identified with a main character more in a deep feelings, deep real reality feelings more than her as a young 20-something.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's podcast.
Yeah, we're having a podcast.
Awesome. And that's part of it. We get to
and interact with as far as her as a character, the real feelings of a 25 to 30-year-old. I felt like that so much in my 20 to 30-something-year-old self. And I don't think it's talked about enough. I don't think it's exposed enough. I think she could be seen as the worst person in the world. And I think this is why it's named that. She could be seen as the worst person in the world, but she is how most women feel.
Yeah. Well, I
think not that they don't want to have kids or whatever, that whole line was.
Yeah.
But just how you just are expected to kind of assimilate with a guy, and you're supposed to do this. This is what people expect you to do, and you're just following in line, or you're expecting to do this, expecting to do that. And there's a part of your insides emotionally that you want to be independent, and you act out on that every now and then, and you want to be your own self, and you don't want to be what everybody wants you to be. And I related to that a ton. And that's why I like the movie so much.
I don't think it's.
I don't think that was the point of it.
No, I think it was in a way. But I think it went to the other characters too. But I was going to say, I think you might be right. It's not as talked about or the focus of a movie as much, right? But also, it's not the most. It's a common feeling I think people have. It's not a unique perspective.
No, it's not unique, but it's not talked about as much.
Yeah. But I think any of the characters, even the two more major male characters, her other two big, more serious love interests. Excuse me. I think they also. You could look at them. That's what I mean. I think it hits a most people could identify with the film, a character.
And I love how they made the males so vulnerable, kind of. I mean, they made them very real and vulnerable.
Yeah, well, I'm saying they could also be have the feeling of viewing themselves as the worst person in the world.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I'm saying. You go into it thinking, oh, she's the worst person in the world.
She's the one.
Well, she's not. I mean, you all feel like everyone feels like the worst person in the world at
Yeah.
times in their lives because they make decisions that you always make decisions that not everybody agrees with.
Yeah.
So you always feel like the
Well,
worst
you
person
feel
in the
if you have
world.
any sort of self-reflection,
Right.
and when you hurt someone you care about, but make a decision that's better for you,
Rather than just pleasing.
or hurt somebody that you cared about at some point,
Right.
you feel like the worst person in the world.
Of course, yeah.
Right? Or someone you care about, who's in a different place than you, can make you feel like the worst person in the world.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
And so I thought it did a good job on doing all that.
I did have moments that I felt like it dragged a little bit.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I thought it could be slightly shorter, like maybe an hour and 45 minutes or whatever, but I thought the music's very loud.
When I was watching it a bit, I was having trouble. This movie's a little. The only thing tough about watching this movie is the hype that comes with it, because everybody talks about it as like the best movie. Like, oh, this is so great, right?
I know.
And so I'm watching. I'm like, it's good. I don't think it's like the greatest thing that's come out in a while.
I know, because I listened to a couple podcasts. We listened to one together, and I listened to one separately. That the people were like, these are like famous actor people. Where they're like, this is one of the best movies we've seen.
I mean, it does a couple interesting things where it breaks like genre. It's not like a straight drama. There's 2, maybe 3, like more like.
Protagonists.
No, I'm saying like artistic moments where it changes, right?
Yeah,
it does
yeah,
like
yeah.
the cartoon
When
scene.
she's walking through the street.
It does where
everything
everybody's
freezes.
frozen.
Yeah.
Where she imagines herself as like an older, overweight woman
That's true.
in her old age.
They kind of combine a lot of elements. That's
So
not
that
normal
stuff was
in
interesting. I think that's some of the stuff people latched onto. Like it breaks your expectation. It reminded me at times, though again, I don't think it's as good of a movie because it's rated much higher on my list of first-time watches for 2022. I mean, it reminded me tonally, though, of like a Drive My Car. Now, I know some of it is the foreign language piece and the slowness of it. But just still that, like, the loneliness the main character carries.
Yeah, I can see that.
There was 1 or 2 times where I'm like, oh, it's a little dry. This brings back the similar feelings I had watching Drive My Car.
Yeah.
Which, Drive My Car is number 3 on my list for the year.
Of course.
Of course.
No, I thought it was a great movie. I really liked it. I felt it was a little slow in parts, but I liked the kind of artistic qualities it brought. I liked the acting. I love just the emotion and the different feelings that it brought out and exposed of her that I think is really real in a lot of people. And it broke the normality of like relationships and whatever. So I like that.
You know what I thought? My last thought about it. Well, I had 2 thoughts. One, it was a little interesting when it tells you, like, hey, this is a story told in 12 chapters.
Yeah, I was like, wow.
With a prologue and an epilogue.
Yeah.
So it does. This is Gypsy Wind playing in the background here for us.
It's like
Or
bluegrass.
the foreground. I don't know
It's
how
like
loud it
bluegrass.
is. Foreground, background.
Bluegrass? Yeah.
Yeah. But no, when it's 12 chapters prologue, epilogue, you can at least like keep track of the movie. Like you're pacing it in your mind. But it also gave little titles for each chapter, which also kind of gave you a
hint,
something to think about as like, ooh, what's this going to be? My favorite was like
positive.
No, the Narcissist Circus.
Oh.
Chapter 6 or 7, I think. I don't know. No, my one thought was I thought the movie did really, really well, the feeling it captured the best out of anything. Better than most movies that have ever done it. It did a really good job of, which is also named one of the chapters, I think, of showing or communicating that feeling of what it's like when a relationship comes to an end. That sort of empty feeling that's in there.
Yeah.
Whether it's something you're happy to get out of or was not expecting.
Yeah.
That it's an empty feeling when you're having that conversation or that talk or fight or argument, which is really your last sort of moment in that life that you're living with that person.
Yeah.
And the movie, there's like a desperate emptiness in those moments.
For sure. Yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
The movie did a good job of like bringing, for anyone who's experienced
Showing
those,
that.
like, that's kind of what it's like.
Mhm.
It's like, it's sad, it's scary, it's uncertain. It's this delicate dance between like each other's feelings. That's what the other person wants.
Yeah.
But still wanting to appease them a bit, but fighting for what you really want,
Yeah.
or vice versa. The pleading.
For sure.
I thought that was really good.
Yeah.
There's
that was
like
good.
one or two scenes like that where it's the only time where they get it completely wrong, right? But that was kind of, I think, part of the tone is in the prologue when it says she broke up with a boyfriend and he, like, quote, respected her decision to live her life, like to chase her life and wants. I laughed at the beginning. I'm like, oh yeah, that's how it always happens.
That's how it works.
Not.
No.
But then that was also, I think, part of the tone of the narrator. There was a comical element to the narrator, the voiceover,
Yeah.
throughout the whole movie. So I view that as part of the tongue-in-cheek part of it. Like, that's not how it goes. He didn't respect her choice to leave.
Never. Of course not. Never. Yeah.
So that's my final thought on that. Well, we got to wrap up soon.
Oh, okay. So I really love the movie. I did.
That's it? No other thoughts? Final thoughts on either language lessons or
My final thoughts
the worst person in the
are
world.
That I like that both of the movies bring in different types of relationships that people can have. Like to have with people that they care about but not even maybe be intimate with. And the importance of those relationships in your life. Like her with her ex-boyfriend, him with the language lessons girl. Like, these are different types of relationships that you might not used to be seeing. This kind of intimacy that doesn't involve being sexual or whatnot. I like that aspect of it.
Isn't it interesting how I was just thinking as you were talking, how, and we can leave it vague and open like this, how the better movie ends with the unrealistic ending, and the movie, not saying, I think they're both good. They're both in my top 10 for the year. But the better movie ends with the unrealistic ending. And the one that's
Slightly worse.
that's not as sincere or
raw, real.
ends with the more realistic, quote, better ending. Though, like, this is life, dude. This is life.
I liked
Right?
that not to say the ending, but it didn't end as this like happily ever after wrapped up package.
And neither one gives you a happily ever after.
No.
But
especially worst person in the world.
Worst person in the world ends with like
I mean, it's not sad at the end, but it wraps up more realistically. Very realistically.
I think you could argue both end on a hopeful note. But one ends on a like, okay, that makes me really hopeful. That that's how I want it to end. That's the hope it ends.
Yeah.
The other one ends where you're like, oh yeah,
Okay.
that's how pretty much life goes. That's life.
That's life. That's how it's gonna be. Like this is not a touchy-feely movie
Yeah.
at all.
But I think you could say they both kind of end in a happy, hopeful place.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. For the most
So I don't know.
part.
I think that's one thing on language lessons. It could have been a little less feel-goody at the end. But then again, maybe that wouldn't have the lasting effect.
Yeah.
A little bit more like the worst person in the
I
world.
liked the way it ended because
That's how you wanted it to end.
that's how you want it to end. You feel like if I was her, I would have done that too. Like I would have made that decision. So I'm glad she did. And it would have bothered me if she didn't. Like, how do you end it then? Like.
Well, you end it you end language lessons like life, how it probably would really end in real life. We're like, okay.
Maybe. Okay, we're moving on.
All right.
Never see you again.
All right. We're still working on our video elements. We might have a video episode soon. We really
getting
appreciate
closer.
all the folks who reached out to us on Instagram saying they want to see it.
Love it. Love it.
And we're about to see a very strange movie, Crimes of the Future.
Time
and
sensitive.
Our phone is telling us you need to be there. The movie
It is a
starts in 25 minutes.
time-sensitive issue in 25 minutes.
Oh, that's what the phone says, time
Yeah.
sensitive. You have not moved from your location.
So we're going.
And that'll definitely be our next episode.
Yeah, definitely. It was
All right.
fun.
All right. Oh, cheers.
Cheers.
And we'll let Gypsy Win
Gypsy Win,
blow us
play
on
us
out
out
of here.
All right.
All right. Bye.
Bye.